ladies and gentlemen, it has been a while. It has been it's been a few weeks, honestly, and I guess welcome back to RSL. We've got episode 5 for you guys, for everybody today, and I've been really having trouble just wrapping my head around the Chicago Bears specifically, and so with that being said, I decided to bring in a Chicago Bears fan. Rylan, how the hell are you doing today?
I am doing amazing, Rowan. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Christmas just happened, and I'm having a little bit of some Christmas withdrawals, as probably everybody is,
Oh
because
yeah.
I think everybody misses Christmas right now. Everybody would rather be, off. But since this episode is going up tomorrow on Saturday, you know, everybody will have time to watch this. So I guess there really is nothing to complain about technically. Um, but with that being said, let's get started. I'd say we're gonna line up the Chicago Bears with at the end of the podcast. We're gonna really be rambling about that, but as an Illinois sports fan for you, how do you think the year has gone for you at least since we're winding down technically?
Oh man, as an Illinois sports fan, it's been crazy. Obviously, the Bears. You had the Chicago Bulls start off hot. They petered out a little bit, but still some promise there. Um, obviously had the Cubs earlier in the year. That wasn't too bad. White Sox, we don't talk about them. Um, Overall, pretty well rounded. Not too bad all around.
I had actually went to Chicago, believe it or not, and I went to United Center to actually go to one of the Bulls game. It was against the Spurs back on November 11th, and it was a lot of fun. I got to meet ticketing management, marketing management, and just overall a lot of fun representatives who work for both the Chicago Bears and the Chicago Blackhawks, since they both technically share their arena because of how huge it is. And it was just a blast in general. Obviously, coming back, I unfortunately missed a class because I went to bed at 4 a.m. with over 2 hour with only like 2 hours of sleep in between 2 days, and I hit the snooze button on my alarm clock, and I just so happened to my body just decided to fully shut down and completely collapse, and I just fell back asleep. I wake up, it's about 8:25. You want to know when my class starts?
What time?
5 minutes after that, and I haven't even gotten in the shower. I was in my greasy jeans, as I like to call them.
Ooh,
Yeah, it wasn't a very
nice.
good look. I obviously made the rest of my classes, but that was actually the only class I missed this entire semester. So I think I'd rather be glad compared to the other people who just didn't even give their classes a shot for half of Miami University. um, but I'm not here to talk about I'm not here to get into the nitty gritty with like attendance. I guess for multiple classes I take over this semester, but I'm here to obviously talk about sports, and I'd say we just get right into it with Rylan's Sunday slate picks. Rylan, what do you got for us?
All right, so I picked the Bucks over the Dolphins, the Patriots over the Jets, the Steelers over the Browns, the Jaguars over the Colts, the Titans over the Saints, the Panthers over the Seahawks, the Bengals over the Cardinals, the Giants over the Raiders, the Bears over the Niners, and the Bills over the Eagles.
I'd say those are some pretty good picks, honestly. I can't even lie, because I see very obvious situations here, as just the regular season is winding down, such as Carolina fighting for the NFC South champion, being NFC South champions, and then you got the Jaguars trying to hold on to that lead that they've got in the AFC South right now, with competitors like the Colts, obviously, which they're going up against, which they're trying to eliminate with potentially handing them an L this Sunday, or and then they've got to worry about the Texans, which I'm not sure if they play them next week or if they still play them at all, but they've still got them to worry about. So they potentially, if the Jags lose here and the Colts are still in contention, they could potentially lose the AFC South depending on who you ask, or just depending on how the cookie crumbles, I guess you could say. Um, but the Giants, I thought was pretty interesting. I also picked the Giants, I believe. I could be wrong, but I definitely agree with your Bears getting the dub on Sunday night primetime because I'd say the 49ers, they're clinching they clinched the playoffs. I don't think they expect themselves to win the NFC West because the Seahawks kind of have that locked in right now unless they potentially lose here against Carolina, which is another scenario that you know can definitely happen. Like the Panthers could seriously upset the Seahawks. I don't doubt that. The NFC South is such a tightly contested division year in and year out. It seems, and I don't doubt that the Panthers could potentially come out with a victory against the Seahawks and the Bears upsetting the 49ers in prime time. I'm not sure what the over under is, but I guarantee you it's being handed to them with the 49ers are getting that handed to them because obviously there's a few injuries with the Bears. I'm not sure if Jalen Johnson is still injured. Is he?
Uh, I don't believe so. I think he's back. Yes.
Okay. Because
So,
obviously you still need key pieces going into the playoffs. And with that obviously being said, I'd say that there have been too many injuries, honestly. Everybody's been tearing their ACL, it seems.
oh yeah,
And
there's been
while
so
it's very
many.
sad, it's also very funny because this seems this seems to be a lot worse than it has been in previous years, like I've stated. And I just really don't understand why it's becoming so much more prevalent than it has been. Um, obviously you could point out like obviously artificial turf could be a factor, but you really wonder if like the movement, the type of positioning that the players are in before or during plays could obviously be another factor that causes those injuries because OBJ was obviously one of those factors back in Super Bowl 56, I believe. He was running his route and I believe he either tore his ACL or he tore something in his leg, as far as I'm concerned, uh, back then. And I don't think that was artificial turf. I obviously, well, it was. They were playing on artificial turf, as far as I'm concerned, but I don't think the cause was the artificial turf. I think it was obviously a mismovement in his pivoting and what he was doing on the route that he was running. But anyhow, I'm gonna obviously shift over to my picks, which are a little bit different. I've obviously still got the Jags winning against the Colts, the Bengals winning against the Cardinals, Steelers winning against the Browns, Buccaneers taking care of business against the Dolphins at Rock Hard, and um, I've got Titans beating the Saints. I've got Patriots beating the Jets. I've got Giants beating the Raiders. I've got Bills beating the Eagles, and then I've got the Bears taking care of business at home on Sunday night primetime, rounding it off. And the reason why I say that the Seahawks are probably going to beat the Panthers is because the Seahawks seem to be steamrolling just about anybody they play. And I'm not sure if they're going to really cool down before the season ends until like either they clinch the conference as like the best record or they just outright win the NFC West and then they'll probably cool off. But there isn't really like any like cooling down at all, especially with the fact that this is like the second to last week. And realistically, what really are you gonna do? Like you need to obviously stay in the lead, or else you're gonna be completely screwed. Because keep in mind, the Seahawks are only like one win ahead of the rest of the NFC West, with the 49ers and the Rams both being 11-4 and the Seahawks being 12-3. Obviously can, if you put that in perspective, that's not really much of a lead. They need to obviously take care of business here, I'd say, and they want to do exactly that in this scenario. But obviously, like you said, the Panthers should obviously want it more, essentially. But I'd say if anything, the Titans, I was initially going to pick the Saints, but then I realized like, Titans have been doing a little bit better, but at the exact same time, if the Saints can obviously fumble on offense like they realistically have been all season and the defense just collapses, then the Titans can easily secure a victory here. Like it's bad against bad, but at the exact same time, there's a little bit of leeway between like how bad both those teams really are, you know. But
Yeah.
I want to understand realistically, like, do you think who are like your current Super Bowl locks at least for right now? Like, it can
All
obviously
right.
be multiple teams as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so on the AFC side, I am heavily leaning towards a Patriots or honestly, even, they fumbled a little bit recently. I still feel like the Broncos are pretty strong right now. The Broncos, I feel like they've proved it. They have a really strong defense. Their offense has been clicking a little bit. Hasn't been great, at least over the last week, it hasn't been great, but over the entire season, they have looked overall pretty well. The Patriots have looked good on both sides of the ball. You have Drake May who came in. He's playing really well, playing not MVP caliber in my opinion, but I believe he's playing very well for a practical practical. He played probably a little under half the season last season, if I can remember correctly. But I think he really is breaking out right now, and this is really a really good position for them, and they can really turn around right now. So I feel like those two in the AFC at least they have a really strong chance. In the NFC, I feel like you can go any way. You have a bunch of teams like the entire NFC West with the 49ers, the Seahawks, and the Rams, who are just overall really strong teams. You have the 49ers who are fighting through injuries on both sides of the field. They have been persevering through all of that as of late. You have the Seahawks who have been clicking on offense, especially, but man, their defense has come to play these last few weeks. You have like Devin Witherspoon. He's been having great year since he's been drafted. He's been looking amazing, and he's only gotten better this year as well. And then obviously the Rams, who are clicking on offense. You have Matthew Stafford, who's playing. He seems like he never ages. He's playing amazing. Um, and then you have other divisions like the Bears, Packers, who are really close. So I mean, I think it really comes between you got so many options on the NFC side, but I would say my two locks would probably be Seahawks or Rams. I feel like.
I'd say that you've got quite a few good points there, but I kind of have something different over on the AFC side. I'd say that it won't be a Broncos or Patriots sort of scenario on the AFC. I'd say it's still Patriots, yes, but I'd say you pick more the underdog in the AFC West and you go Chargers. The Chargers have looked like massive underdogs. You know, they've beaten more prominent opponents such as the Steelers and other guys. Obviously, they the Steelers obviously broke down in that game against the Chargers, but what else can you really show? I mean, you're beating teams that are obviously performing good outside of those games where they look a little bit underwhelming. But I'd say over on the NFC side, you've got a very good point. It could definitely be one of the three teams in the NFC West because of just how strong each team just looks by itself. Obviously, 49ers, like you said, just fighting through injuries, and the Rams obviously dealing with a very good veteran quarterback under Matthew Stafford. This is like one of the best seasons he's ever had. He could be an MVP. He's currently looking like an MVP caliber quarterback, and then you've got an MVP caliber wide receiver in Puka Nakua over just like the last few games in of itself. Like that is MVP standards right there. And I'd say that the Rams could come out on top of the NFC if the Seahawks seem to fall against the Panthers or whoever else they play coming out of this season. And just heading into the playoffs, it's going to be a really rough patch for just the NFC itself, considering of how competitive it's all going to be with the Bears, the Packers, as it might seem, and then you got the Panthers who seem more competitive. Bryce Young seems to be breaking out just like he should be in his third year, and then you've got obviously the rest of the NFC West, like I've talked about, and then you've got over on the NFC East, you've got obviously Eagles. Like they look a little bit underwhelming coming into the second half of the season because Jalen Hurts seems to be underperforming, especially with that 4 interception game he had against I believe it was the Chargers from my understanding, and all those turnovers obviously led to their eventual downfall. But I'd say if they can bring it back together, circle back together, and really lock in for the playoffs, they could definitely be a serious team that everybody wants to look after and see how far they can get too. But yeah, I'd say just the playoffs in general. You've got super good Super Bowl locks. I obviously got different opinions, but over on the NFC side, I'd say that's where we're most in agreement with.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. But as far as I'm concerned, we're gonna obviously shift a little bit more over to the college basketball side, which you're really strong with, as far as I'm concerned. Um, but for the
All
first
right.
time in program history, this I'm obviously glazing my college a little bit, but why not, man? I mean, this is a
Yeah.
really big moment that we're having right now. We are 13 and 0 for the first time in program history. We're currently 11 and 0 for the first time in program history, 12 and 0 and 13 and 0, and we're coming up on a really big statement conference game against on January 6th, I believe, against Akron, which it could definitely be the deciding factor of like whether or not Miami, if they stay undefeated after the game that they've got on December 29th, which I'm not sure who it's against, but if they win against Akron, they could definitely be a lock for the top 25 AP top 25 poll going into whatever week it'll be. I just want to, obviously know your opinions on all of this because I'm pretty sure there's only 6 teams left that are currently undefeated in college basketball play right now.
Yeah, I know that there are some really strong teams out there right now, especially U Miami. That has been a surprise. Out of I was not expecting that to come out there, but you got so many different teams out here that are looking really strong. I know my personal college is looking okay as of now, but ISU, for example, Illinois State, they're looking all right, but man, you have so many different teams that are really showing this depth, especially in this freshman class that is just coming out. You have so many good players all across the board that are really making a statement this time around. And man, these games, these conference games, this March Madness, this is all going to be uh, a tournament season to remember.
Absolutely. I'd say if Miami doesn't get into the rankings or if they don't secure, a top seed, I'd say they'd still be in contention with like a more bottom seed, such as like 15, 14, or 13 seed in whatever uh, part of the bracket that they're put in. Because obviously there's different sections, such as like, I think the north, south, east, and west. But uh, I'd say for our standout players, we've got a really obvious player such as Trey Perry, who dropped 24 like 1 or 2 games ago, and he's been on the fly. Obviously, I actually met Trey a few times back in high school when we played them. When we played against Lakota East a few times, and obviously in scrimmages itself as well, we got to obviously interact with him, and he's just a really all around great athlete. I've obviously got to see him play in person in college as well, and he's shown no signs of stopping. Obviously, when it comes to what he can do on and off the court. So realistically, it's just an all around great atmosphere and just a great season so far for Miami University. And I'd really want to see how far really they can go before they might get handed their first L, if at all. Obviously, I may be stretching it a little bit. Obviously, they're probably going to take a few L's here and there, but I'd say that this is going to be their best season ever.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. They are looking really strong right now, and I think they could, as long as they keep this work ethic up, I think they're going to keep going. They're just gonna keep plowing through, getting those good wins. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say obviously the Mid American Conference obviously isn't much to show really, but when you obviously go against more tougher opponents in that conference, you really gain a really big self esteem. A really big sense of self esteem as a player in that conference because obviously it's not something super big like the SEC or the ACC, but like you get those small, big wins essentially against some teams such as like Kent State, Akron, Buffalo, who are currently really doing good just all around in the MAC right now, and you feel so much better about yourself unless like you're a bigger team, which you kind of feel like it's a brush off win essentially. But for a team like Miami University, you really got to take what you can get around these parts. Obviously, fans fans of college basketball in general obviously don't think that they should be ranked right now, but I personally disagree with what you're seeing right now with all these breakout players such as Trey Perry and just the rest of the entire Miami basketball roster. It can really just depend on like, is Miami going to stay as consistent as they want to be, and how well are we going to see them do just at the end of the season itself, obviously. And I'd say in general, fans can obviously be misconceived, and obviously those really really small wins against like teams that are just in the FCS or just like not even in the same division. Which I think we played for one of our first games. We played Old Dominion, which was a almost a loss essentially going into the first out of the first half because we were down at the time, and then we just started steamrolling them, and we did not stop. And then we also played, I believe, against a team in the National uh, Catholic College Athletic Association, which, if you don't know, is like a separate entity compared to the NCAA. So it's very surprising you play a team like that. And you know, I saw an Instagram post today about our regional campus, Miami and Hamilton. We lost against the Ohio University Bobcats. Obviously, they're our biggest rivals in the MAC right now, and just in general, really. But they're really like gloating about how good of a win it was, and to all the Ohio University um, Ohio University fans, let me remind you, you won against a regional college. You did not win against anybody big. You are not those people. You are terrible right now. Take what you can get and shut up. Anyways, I just obviously want to throw some hate out there as just a Miami University fan. Obviously, it's not going to look good on camera, but at the exact same time, you can probably get where I'm going with this.
I'll take
I'm
what you
really
can.
not a big fan of them just like being super duper happy over a win against a regional campus that isn't even the main campus of a college that they play normally. So I really don't know what they expected. Um, but
Yeah.
off of obviously college basketball, I'd like to go into something else that obviously you might not be super specified with. Obviously, college football, you're more obviously an Illinois State fan with the FCS and stuff like that. You normally focus on that. I obviously want to put some light into your team. I'm not sure if they won the FCS national championship. I'm pretty sure they lost as far as I'm concerned.
They are
Um,
in the championship as of now. They play January 5th. So we will
okay, that's
see.
what I thought. Because Illinois
Yep.
State, they upset North Dakota State, and
Yeah,
that
so
was
they have had a
nuts.
crazy run. As far as I'm concerned, I have actually learned that they have traveled the most and are the first SCS team to get four away wins in a row in the SCS playoffs, as they have gone on to be Louisiana State, I believe, North Dakota State. Then they went over to UC Davis, and then they also had to travel all the way back to Pennsylvania to go against Villanova. And they have upset every single team as they were unranked going into it. So man, it's been quite the Cinderella run. It's been amazing to watch from the ISU side.
I obviously thought that going into it they were still ranked, but I obviously probably didn't look at the rankings properly because I think they were still ranked at like 24, or they dropped out after they lost, and they were like 5-4, and now they're like back up to, I believe, what is it, 8-4, 9-4 right now because they won four
Ooh,
straight.
yeah, they won four straight. They were, I want to
So now they're
say,
9-4.
yeah, they're up there. I forgot exactly what their record is, but man, they have really fought back because I remember they were having their play in game versus Louisiana State. Winner had to go up against the consensus number one seed, the strongest team, North Dakota State, and man, they have really surprised me.
Yeah, honestly, like I obviously know a bit about the FCS and like who's really the top dogs up there. And I've seen this season that like Villanova, UC Davis, and I believe North Dakota State and South Dakota State. Obviously because they're usually in top contention for the national championship in their league. But I'd say those are really big statement wins, and I could definitely see Illinois State. Obviously, they're still going to be ranked as the underdog here, but I see them pulling away with this. I genuinely do. I don't see a world where who did they play currently in the
So
championship?
they play Montana State, and that
Okay,
game, I mean, it's a toss up. I feel like Illinois State is still very much the very heavy
favorites.
underdogs. They're the very heavy underdogs in my opinion compared to Montana State. And although that they are very heavy underdogs, they've been very heavy underdogs for each game they've played. So I feel like overall, this is their kind of story. I feel like it's an overall, regardless if they win or don't, it's a very, very great Cinderella run. And overall, it's a great story.
Yeah, I obviously think that a team like Montana State or just in general, any of those teams in that vicinity, obviously, like I said, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, are really big statement wins because those are usually the powerhouses of the FCS when it comes to college football. Especially with Montana too, you don't really know what to expect from those type of games because those rivalries are so big and they're like two big powerhouses just duking it out. You're like, who's gonna win? Who's gonna win? Like you don't really know who's gonna get the over or under on those games until you really just find out on game day. I'd say, and like it can switch at any moment, honestly. And I'd say with Illinois State just coming in out of nowhere, winning four straight, jumping back into the rankings like they just never left. Apparently, it's amazing to see that. But I'd say switching over to the FBS side of the whole shtick in college football, we've got a bunch of fans, college football fans, and they're definitely not Notre Dame fans, from what I can tell, because they want them in a conference. And I'm really wondering on your take here for this because if you don't know, Notre Dame got left out of the college football playoffs and elected to not play their bowl game as a result because of the ridiculousness in the FCS schools such as Tulane and James Madison obviously playing over them, which I thought was a little bit ridiculous too. But you got to understand, you obviously have other underdogs in the FCS, and I guess it just adds a little bit of a wow factor for those games that they play against like Oregon, and then I believe it was James Madison played Oregon, and then who did Tulane play? I believe they played. It wasn't Texas. I think it was Texas Tech, and
That sounds right. That sounds right.
yeah, I
I
think
think.
they
Yeah.
I think they both got steamrolled. But who really could have guessed otherwise? Like seriously, it's an FCS school going up against two powerhouse FBS schools. Well, they're not FCS schools. They're still FBS, but they're outside of the Power Four conferences. I'd like
Yeah.
to obviously correct myself there. But they sure did play like FCS schools. um,
Yeah.
um, but I'd say that Notre Dame it should not move back into the ACC until they get obviously their media rights with NBC and other cable companies, other streaming platforms, obviously corrected. And I think it lasts until 2031, as far as I'm concerned. And I'd say that if Notre Dame wants to move back into a conference, why not just move into a conference that they're already in with every other sport, which is the ACC, if you don't know. They were in the ACC back in 2019 into 2020, and then they moved into the FBS independence. But my personal opinion, they shouldn't move until they obviously have that contract up. And here's a few reasons why. They already play a handful of ACC teams, such as Stanford right now, which is a rivalry for them. They play North Carolina next year, I believe. They play Cal. They play just a handful of teams all who used to just be all cross conferences, but now they're normally locked into the ACC. It seems, and they also play Stanford, which is an ACC team now. They play and they play Miami. They play University of Miami. They play them again. So that's another ACC team to add. They're fans are so concerned about them getting. They want them in a conference so bad, but they have to understand their schedule, while it looks easy, looks like just about any other ACC team's schedule. You want to know why? Because Notre Dame, just like any other team in the ACC, plays conference games just like the ACC, and then they play a handful of beat up teams at the beginning, middle, and the end of the season. And then they obviously play their rivalry games with USC, obviously, like they do every single year. And they also play one of their other rivalry games, which isn't obviously every year, but it's definitely a prevalent run to the average Notre Dame fan, which is against Michigan State. So realistically, they've got a schedule that works for them. Fans are just so mad that other teams just aren't performing well going into next season, as if that's Notre Dame's fault. That's not their fault, is it? I mean,
Oh,
I need to know your opinion on this. Is it
yeah.
really fair to diss Notre Dame for other teams being bad?
No, I don't think it is. I mean, I think them being independent is, I mean, as you stated, I think you stated it perfectly. I think that it really does come down to those rights that you were mentioning. And like I feel like a lot of it is that, and then especially when they try like especially when they would go into a conference, I feel like ACC would be like the obvious one just because you have so many other sports that they play in that conference, and they already play a bunch of teams from those conferences. So like it would obviously be the easiest one to move into, I would argue. But I mean, I don't think it's in their best interest, and I definitely don't think that they deserve to be beat up on for their um their um their entire conference, or not their conference, their games and their matches that they have, especially because they don't I don't think them being independent should really impact too much. And I mean, we've seen them be independent for a few years now, and really, I don't really know why this is becoming a thing right now.
I think the only reason why it's a problem is because Notre Dame got left out for one. Obviously, it was a smaller issue back then when they first moved to independence and stuff like that, and then it became bigger and bigger with like the L's that they were taking. But like people forget, Notre Dame was in the national championship against Ohio State. They won statement games against Penn State. I believe they won. They won a really a big nail biter against Oregon, which I watched, which was absolutely nuts. Against Dylan Gabriel and Riley Leonard back in 2020, beginning of or the end of 2024, I believe. And they also won against Georgia. I mean, seriously, how more legit can you get for a team like that? Obviously, they're not looking as like stylish as they are, but you have to understand they're using a true freshman quarterback right now in CJ Carr, who threw 24 touchdowns to a 9 interception ratio. As a true freshman, he was thrusted into the starting position before the season started, with many fans obviously, a little bit concerned, a little bit worried of like what he might produce as such a young player and with like little to no experience besides obviously winning the starting job and obviously being thrust into that position, like I said, before the start of the season. It's little things like that that make you think, Notre Dame just doesn't seem as bad of a team as like people really say they are. Obviously, they've got studs such as Jeremiah Smith, Jadarian Price. They've got uh, they had Xavier Watts. They had they had a bunch of powerhouse players. They had Michael Mayer at that time. Like they come out with like really good players. It's just like why don't people look back at that and say like they had good players then. They have really good talent right now that obviously is going really highly in the NFL draft and have players who are eventually going to be top prospects if they keep playing like they are and keep improving like they are. Like, and you also have Marcus Freeman, a powerhouse coach who is currently on the phone half the time, getting offers from the NFL, such as the Titans, the Giants, all that sort of stuff. Like, you got to look at all that. You have to look and take that into perspective. It is so infuriating knowing that fans just base off the fact that Miami lost or Miami won against Notre Dame. Texas A&M won against Notre Dame at the beginning of the season. But need I have to remind you that Texas A&M and Miami were both in the college football playoffs, obviously before Texas A&M got eliminated. But Miami's currently set to play Ohio State like this coming weekend, as far as I'm concerned. And not only that, but Notre Dame lost by a combined 3 points against both teams. Those were top teams, might I add, and are still technically top teams right now. And another thing I should add is the fact that Miami lost against both currently unranked SMU and Louisville, and Notre Dame lost against still currently ranked teams. What sense does that make?
Yeah, I'm in full agreement with you here. I think you explained it perfectly. I mean, obviously, especially with the things they were able to pull off with a true freshman quarterback. You have like it's like that's the real, and then especially you start that's the starting job. You have such a you that's such a big weight just on your shoulders immediately, and the fact that they were able to do what they did, facing the competition that they did, regardless if they lost to these unranked opponents or they lost to these ranked opponents compared to teams that lost to unranked opponents, and they were significantly like they could be comparable in some regards, but man, you still have these ranked opponents that are performing at on a weekly basis that are just really putting in the work. You gotta cut them some slack, I think.
Yeah, and you also brought up a point that just came to my head. We're also comparing the fact that no, like I'm pretty sure CJ Carr is currently having a slightly better season than Carson Beck, who, might I add, is a fifth year senior. He's going to go into the NFL draft this season, and we're comparing him to a true freshman quarterback. I see a little bit of bias, at least, towards the fact that my like, and people also have to add the fact that like and they also say that like, oh, Miami already doesn't play in a good conference and all that sort of stuff. Then why bash Notre Dame for playing basically the exact same amount of like conference teams? This doesn't really make much sense. Obviously, they steamrolled the crap out of Syracuse. They literally didn't even let them score until their third drive. Or no, not even their third drive. They didn't let them score almost all game. When I saw the first bit of the score, it was 56-0. I don't think they scored until the end of the game when I think they put away most of their starters and
Yep.
substituted them into their backups. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't make any sense to me. Like you can have such big like obviously they aren't statement wins, but like they're very dominant wins obviously over like smaller teams, but like the circumstances that like some teams have, like obviously you're not going to account for it could have been much closer because you didn't have to account for Syracuse's starting quarterback getting injured right before the game. You don't have other teams obviously accounting for other small injuries that obviously can turn the tides. You also had the Notre Dame also won against a few ranked opponents. One of them being still ranked USC, and then they also won against ranked Pitt before they got unranked. They were really doing good before obviously Notre Dame showed them who's boss. But it's seriously embarrassing knowing these arguments and how bad they can sometimes be when you don't put into account all the good accolades that Notre Dame has just had this season. Obviously, I'm being a little bit biased towards them, but that's because I'm a Notre Dame fan, man. I
Yeah.
was born and raised a Notre Dame fan. Obviously, I love IU basketball, but that's just because Notre Dame just isn't a basketball team. You might call me a bandwagon for that, but you got to remind yourself that I grew up, well, people don't know this. I grew up in India. I was born and raised in Indiana. Obviously, I can pick those teams. I have every right to do so. That's something that gets put into account. So I'd say it's a lot of BS with what fans, Miami University fans, Hurricane fans, all that sort of stuff, and just fans of college football in general, it's just like spitting out as if it really helps them defend like their own team, which is obviously Miami University in the question, and I guess a little bit of some of like James Madison, Tulane, but I don't think they have any room to talk because they should just be lucky that they even made the college football playoffs over like powerhouse teams that are actually like really good. That you could have had BYU or you could have had obviously Notre Dame, like we're obviously talking about in the college football playoffs, who are in Power Four conferences. I see a big issue in that, and I guarantee you it's going to be restructured after the type of drama that Notre Dame dropped with them revoking themselves from bowl eligibility, from just doing a bowl game this year. But and I really don't want to shift with like such an angry with such an angry mood, but I'd say this is where you're gonna start getting a little bit mad here, as I shift to
Oh,
what the hell are the Chicago doing, dude?
oh
What's Chicago
man.
football doing?
I don't know. All these rumors about moving to Indiana. Man, this
Gary,
is
Indiana
Gary,
specifically is
Indiana
one
of
of the
all
top
places.
prospects, apparently.
You get so many people talking about like it's basically a suburb of Chicago. Well, it's not.
You're
It's
moving
not,
from
but
southern
you
Chicago. You're moving like 30 minutes from southern Chicago. Sure, like that's a short distance, but like for Chicago traffic and all that sort of stuff, that's still a pain in the ass for half the
yeah.
fans, depending on where they live.
I mean, I get it. I mean, they're having issues with their rebuilding because they want to rebuild in a new location, obviously, which has been mentioned as over the last year or so. And just because of funding and whatnot, they are struggling to do so, and they're not allowed to as of now. So it's very interesting to see. Um, I can't say I'm a big fan of potentially having a Chicago team play in Gary, Indiana, of all
The
places.
Gare Bears.
Uh, the Gare Bears. Oh, there we go. The Gare Bears. I don't really know how I feel about it, especially since like you have such a strong sports city in Chicago. You have a bunch of people who are there. You have so many Chicago teams, so many teams that show the support.
So many
You're gonna
diehard
lose.
fans.
Exactly. You're gonna lose so much revenue off
You're
of
gonna receive
this
a lot of publicity
franchise.
once you make this move, if you do,
Exactly.
or if Chicago
This
doesn't get their shit together. Sorry
yeah.
for my profanity, but I'm just as angry as you are. I think we both have a right to be angry. This is a big NFL team we're talking about potentially
Yeah.
relocating. This is ultimately worse than the Baltimore Colts moving to Indianapolis and then the Browns moving to Baltimore before getting their team back because of all the crap they were getting.
Yeah. I mean, I think especially since it is this big of a team, like you have like don't get me wrong, Bears as a whole, maybe not like the biggest team, obviously. They're not the biggest team out there, especially with their past, I mean, haven't been the greatest, especially over in recent memory. But I mean, you have such a good city for marketing reasons and such a strong city overall. I mean, you have, for example, you can look back at when the Cubs won the World Series, for example. You had celebrations throughout the streets.
I
I get
saw
it was
those
over a
too.
hundred years,
Those were
but
nuts.
it was over 100 years. It was over 100 years, and you had people throughout the streets. You had the whole Chicago Blackhawks dynasty. That 3 years that they won the Stanley Cup. You see that this impact that these sports have on the city of Chicago, and potentially removing that from that city, I feel like is just not a great move if they go through with it.
Yeah, and you also have to put into the account that it's not just the fact that Chicago is finding tough places to obviously put their new stadium. It's the fact that the city of Chicago literally won't
Yeah,
use the taxpayer dollars that Chicago has received over the years to either renovate Soldier Field, which obviously is an option. It would probably be a good option to maintain, obviously, the longevity of the stadium itself because it's such an old stadium. But it's also the fact that you won't let them move or actually fund their rebuilding process for potentially a new stadium. Like that's just ridiculous, man. The Chicago Bears are essentially the big three. We don't talk about the White Sox obviously because
yeah,
just
yeah,
like you said that it was the first time in over 100 years that the Cubs won a World Series. It's probably going to be 100 years before the White Sox even wins one.
yeah, yeah.
But my point still stands. They have such good publicity with like the synergizing that the Cubs and the Bulls also have just connected with all three of them. Like it's nuts how good just the obviously the fan support that Chicago has had over the years, even with like the ups and downs like the Bulls have had over the past decade, with the fact that Derrick Rose obviously left the team and stuff like that. It was an unfortunate injury. We obviously could have seen a better season, a better
Yeah,
dynasty of the Bulls if
yeah,
managed properly and not given up on so quickly just because of an injury. Obviously, he wasn't the same, but that doesn't mean you should obviously give up on a player that was destined for greatness, especially with the youngest NBA player to ever win MVP. And then you've got the Chicago Bears making a few decent runs, obviously making the playoffs a few times. Obviously, there was a bit of embarrassment here and there with obviously the double doink, and then the 8-8 Chicago Bears somehow going against the 10-6, I believe the 11-5 New Orleans Saints back in
Yeah.
2020 on Nickelodeon. Somehow, Mitch Trubisky won MVP of that game despite losing.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, Obviously, I don't want to make fun of it because I like the Chicago Bears. Obviously, I'm not a Bears fan and stuff like that, but I love the fact that Chicago has such a big rivalry. But Indiana and Gary itself and whatever other city or just small suburb town outside, like a little bit outside of Chicago, that was considered, like, it doesn't have a nice ring to it at all.
No.
I just
No.
don't see a world where Chicago doesn't get the stuff that they need for like stadium renovations. And I guarantee you, if worse if if worse comes to worse, they are probably going to require like stadium ticket increases, concessions being increased in price and stuff like that, and it's gonna be really bad because like it's gonna go into a downward spiral for like Bears fans. Obviously, they understand the scenario that they're going through, and this is essentially one of the ways that they could fund a new stadium or just a renovation in general. But like, I mean, man, it is so bad to get just like completely blocked from an entire city, a city that is in so much support of a team like this. Like
Yeah.
I imagine it would go over even worse for a team like the Cubs or the Bulls because I obviously know that they're a lot more popular than the Bears, but the Bears are still a really popular NFL. You also have to understand the fact that this is one of the first NFL teams ever.
Yeah.
This was one of the first two NFL teams alongside what is now known as the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, they came before that, but that was just because they were obviously founded far before. But we don't really count that because what football league did they really play in? And they were both in Illinois. Like,
Yeah.
you seriously have to understand. Like, is there like any way NFL teams could possibly pitch into stuff like this? Like, this is ridiculous. I'd say.
Yeah. It's something to say the least, man.
I can only imagine the amount of like frustration that's just like going through your mind right now as you're holding back so much
Yeah.
anger.
Yeah, I don't think I can get behind the Gare Bears.
The Care Bears. uh, that rhymes
Yeah.
with Care Bears, mind you.
I know it does. Yeah,
Oh
man,
God,
it's something.
dude, I like
So
what made him consider Gary, Indiana?
I have no clue. I have no clue.
Like obviously, if Gary, Indiana gets their crap together for once and actually like renovates their city to become a little bit more friendly for incoming Chicago fans, then maybe we could understand it if they could go still if they could possibly still go under the Chicago Bears because technically
Yeah.
MetLife Stadium is located in New Jersey, but you don't see both the Jets or the Giants called the New Jersey Giants or Jets.
Yeah,
So
that's one
technically, it could
situation I
still
could
be
consider.
called under Chicago.
Yeah, I think they would just have to obviously make some changes if it does happen. But I mean, especially since you're finally seeing an up year event this year. So I mean, I guess if it were to happen this year, it'd be next year probably implementing the best after the year that they've had, obviously, which I'm not going to go too much into about. But I mean,
Well, obviously, they have
um,
to put down obviously where they want to put their stadium, and obviously they're
exactly.
having difficulties doing that. So it might not even be next year. It might be the year after that, or
Yeah,
even 5 years from now.
yeah,
Obviously, Soldier Field obviously isn't looking too hot
no,
renovations wise, but at the exact same time, they're holding so much in content for a new stadium, and they just aren't getting it.
yeah,
Specifically with Chicago, I'm not really sure how well, obviously, the stadium search is looking, but I'm pretty sure it's not very good right now. From last time I checked.
yeah. No, it's still about the same.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm willing to bet it's about the same.
yeah. But you know what? Enough with all the negativity that has spiraled in the past 20 minutes. I want to shed some light, obviously, on Chicago itself because that's the main reason I brought you on. Well, the other main reason I brought you on because they're currently 11-4. They're currently in content with possibly winning the NFC North. How do you feel about this?
I'm gonna be honest, it feels great. For the last few years, it has been rough. Um, 2020 is like a whole different beast. I'm not gonna touch that at all. I forget that they even played in the playoffs
If
technically
you even
against the
want to call it
Saints.
that.
If you want to call it that, COVID year, whatever. I mean, you really don't have much there. Um, but I mean, obviously you have the heartbreak in 2018 with the double doink.
Against the
Um,
Eagles.
yes, it
Very
was
sad.
it was especially as a Bears fan who stayed up past his bedtime at the time to watch that
Oh
game.
man, man.
At the game, yeah, it was a rough one. But man, that was it just what we're looking at right now. This team, it's something special, man. You had the introduction of Ben Johnson this year, the change that he's able to implement, the difference in locker room, for example, the team chemistry is just at an all-time high right now. You saw the at the beginning of the year, you saw they were getting fraud allegations because they were 0-2, especially against two divisional opponents. They were arguing um, that it's the same Chicago Bears. And I mean, you can just see that as soon as they got their footing against the Cowboys, you just saw a whole different Bears team. And it's been a sight to see, especially those tight games that they have been squeezing out. I mean, you had the kick block versus the Raiders early in the season, which that could have been our Commanders this season. If you remember from last season when the Commanders got the Hail Mary on us to send us to 4-3, where we didn't win a single game until the final week. So that could have very easily been a Commander situation for us. So considering that they have been able to squeeze out these closer games, unlike the seasons prior, I think that is just a great achievement. And man, this team is fun to watch.
Honestly, yeah, but I obviously I want to diss you a little bit. I don't mean to,
All
but
right. Yep.
it's
Go ahead.
Colson Loveland is like doing really well, and yet you were dissing him on draft night when we were calling. Obviously, I about crashed out when Shamar Stewart was drafted, and obviously he's not panning out the way I. Well, he's panning out just about as much as I thought he would be. Uh, but you thought that Colson Loveland was obviously not as good for Chicago, even though I think the main reason why they drafted him was obviously scheme issues and with with why can't I remember his name?
Tyler Warren.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Like obviously he might have been a better pick depending on who you ask, but at the exact same time with scheme issues and stuff like that, Tyler Warren might have not have been the pick to go with as like whoever works under the Chicago Bears and stuff like that. And I'd say that Colson Loveland has been performing. He's been more of the underdog tight end, obviously, but he's been performing well in of his own. Remind me who's the running back, the
Oh,
rookie running back.
Kyle Manungai.
Yeah, Kyle Manungai. I have him obviously in the little graphic I have up right now. Kyle Manungai has been one of the more underrated rookie running backs right now. Obviously, you got Omarion Hampton, you got Ashton Genty, of course, and then you've got a handful of other rookie running backs. But it's just Kyle Manungai just came out of nowhere, and he's been a dog. It's like you could definitely make an assumption like this could be the next. I don't want to say it because a lot of people would probably get mad at me in the comments, but I'm going to say it anyways. This could potentially be the next Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery scenario that you've got in that you've got right now in Chicago. And if it keeps working for them, it very well could happen. I'd say right now they've got a stacked offense. They've got currently a pretty good O line, and they've got a pretty decent. They've got a really good secondary as of right now. Obviously with Jalen Johnson and Kevin Byer
Yeah.
and a whole bunch of and obviously I wouldn't say Roquan Swift. God bless his soul. He would have been really good if he had stayed. Um,
Oh
but
man.
no,
Yeah.
honestly, and Tremaine Edmonds, obviously, Tremaine
Oh
Edmonds
yeah.
is just a dog day in and day out. Like he puts in the work that you want to see out of an edge rusher like him, And I'm super happy with like where your team is right now. Obviously, I'm not so happy with my team. Yeah, my team isn't doing so hot. I, I
I
um
mean,
I stated in my sports management class week in and week out. I think for the first few weeks when we were losing games a lot, I said I still believe in the Bengals to make the playoffs. And then my professor eventually noticed I didn't raise my hand specifically of like the big sports talk that we have and stuff like that before class of like what's going on. And she was just like, "Why didn't you raise your hand?" And I was just like, "I'm done. I think I've kind of accepted it myself."
you know what? Maybe this draft you'll hit a little better than
Maybe we could
Shamar
get Caleb
Stewart.
Downs. Maybe we could get Caleb Downs, buddy.
Well, I
Maybe
was
we could
thinking
lock him
maybe
up.
let's not go that far. Let's aim for more a little better than Shamar Stewart first. Let's aim for
Yeah, yeah, keep your mouth shut, dude. At least we got,
that.
at least we got Brian Knight, I
Yeah.
think. No, Demetrius Knight.
No. Hmm.
Yeah, Demetrius Knight is actually doing pretty well. And then you got Jordan Powell, who's obviously breaking out this
Of
season. He's,
course.
he's doing pretty good as a safety, but I'd say if you want to obviously make some big moves, I'd say you're going to have to trade Dax Hill. You're going to have to trade Miles Murphy. You're going to have to trade. You're going to have to trade a lot of pieces. You're going to probably. I'm going
Hmm.
to probably say you're going to have to trade, unfortunately, Trey Hendrickson
Yeah.
because obviously he despite the fact that he's obviously doing what he needs to out in the field and he's trying to earn his contract extension like he's been wanting to, despite the fact that he could have left obviously off of a 1 year off of that 1 year contract negotiation that they had. I can't remember what they're called right now, but it's just the fact that like the Bengals defense just needs an overhaul, I'd say, and getting rid of Logan Wilson was definitely the first move of many that they're going to be doing. Obviously, they did it over the trade deadline, but they're going to be making a ton of moves this offseason. If they don't, I'm going to absolutely lose it because if we go into next season with no additions to defense and we just somehow fix our O line, then well, we fixed one problem. Now we got to figure out how to fix the bigger problem now.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
don't I don't I don't, I don't see I don't see a world where we don't trade quite a few pieces. I see Cam Taylor Britt leaving
Hmm.
too because
Yeah.
obviously he was benched and stuff, but I'd say like DJ Turner obviously making a breakout season next season if because like he obviously wants to stay on the team. Probably he probably wants to stay an NFL player. He's probably gonna have to work his ass off just to do so this upcoming season. And I'd say there's just a lot to think about with the Bengals. There's not really much to think about with the Chicago Bears apparently because whatever you get in the draft, it probably doesn't matter because they just know what they're doing right now.
Yeah. I mean, my only critique right now. I mean, I think our edge rushing is a little iffy. You got our whole D line is a little bit of an issue. We're not getting as many pressures as I think we should. I mean, I think you summed it up perfectly. We have obviously our secondary's been playing pretty well. You have that story in Nashawn Wright, who is obviously leading the NFL in takeaways at the moment, which is crazy. You have Kevin Byard, who's been playing amazing for his age
Yeah,
at the safety position.
I'm pretty sure he's a 32-year-old safety right now.
Yes, he is. He is. It's crazy what he's doing right now. I mean, obviously, you still have Jalen Johnson, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, that entire linebacker situation. Even that situation when you had those two go down and our third linebacker go down, and we were playing our fourth and fifth string linebackers. We had that for 2 weeks, I believe. And
What game
man,
was that against? What game did we both
I
watch?
wonder, I wonder,
Was
which
it
one
that
was it?
Vikings game that came down to a field goal? Was it that Vikings game that you were scared half to death that your kicker was gonna botch it because they shanked like a few earlier?
Well, my argument is Cairo Santos. So, I mean,
did
sure. But to be fair,
did you get the 49ers kicker who was just released because he missed too many as if that was gonna help?
we had Jake Moody, yes.
Yeah, you had
Which
Jacob
actually,
Moody. Yeah, he was in a really bad mood probably going into Chicago, knowing the fact that he probably could have taken a starting role and yet somehow still didn't.
Well, I mean, he did hit 5 for 5 in one game. I remember that. I don't remember
Oh,
what game it was
boo-hoo!
specifically, but yeah, he was gone again. Don't know where he's at actually right now. So whatever he's doing, hopefully he's good. But
You're
I
gonna
mean,
see him
Cairo
in
Santos
the
is respect.
UFL next this upcoming season.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
You're
But
gonna see him
honestly,
shaking kicks there.
yeah, I
Uh,
mean, Cairo Santos has earned my respect, especially against the Packers game and that kind of win.
he clutched up
He really did clutch up.
against all odds too.
If we didn't have him kicking there, honestly, I mean, he is so accurate from within 50. After 50, it gets a little iffy,
Within,
but within
outside of it, we're
50,
not so sure.
yes, he's an accurate quarterback. He earned my respect, especially during that game and over towards the end of the season. He's been playing really well. Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly I can only give you so much credit, obviously, with a little bit more nail biters. But obviously,
Oh,
you got to give credit where credit's due. They've been just absolutely Chicago's just been absolutely insane, just completely this season. Do you think they're gonna win the NFC North, or do you think Green Bay might sneak up behind them?
I think you really just got to go out and do it. I think you go all out in this 49ers game. You have a 49ers team who has obviously persevered. I think you just got to go in there. You got to just obviously you just got to fight. You just got to fight for it. You got to put, put everything on the line. You got to win this. You got to win this division,
You
I
got to put
think.
one leg in front of the
Um
other and just do it.
exactly because obviously the Lions are their own situation right now.
Yeah,
The Bears
that
are they
that
clinched
game.
whatever, but you gotta give us you gotta we gotta fight for it. We can't give up now. I mean, especially with how well especially you mentioned our O line. Our O line has been insane.
It looked
They are
abysmal
the reason.
initially a few years ago,
Yes.
but after like a few key
Even last
additions,
year. Even
it's
last
been
year, we
good.
had one starting lineman. Like he was the only lineman who Darnell Wright, the only lineman who would start on any other team in the NFL. We revamped the entire O line. Obviously, our draft pick in Ozzy Trapillo is looking really good. You had him come in for a few games when was it Jackson who went down? I'm not sure. I'm not sure who went down. But we had he stepped in. I mean, man, there's I think you just got to go in and clutch it now. You got to ride this high while you can.
Yeah, because obviously anything can happen in the playoffs depending on who you
Mhm.
ask, and obviously there's pretty big upsets that happen every single year. So Chicago could definitely be one of those targets, I guess, or just one of those like random teams who just get knocked out of the playoffs, and you're kind of just like, what went wrong in that scenario? And it's just your defense or offense collapse, and they just weren't showing up, or something like that, or they just show up at the last minute and something really stupid happens, like a bad call or any like I said, anything could happen. Anything could happen.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I really see this as such an exciting time to be a just a Chicago fan in general because obviously you still got the Bulls doing pretty decent despite the fact that obviously they lost a lot of their games in recent memory, but they started out well. They're obviously trying to work their way back up. You got the Bears on top of the world apparently. Well, almost. You got the Seahawks to obviously work under, but they're in a league of their own
Yeah.
essentially, with Sam
Yeah.
Darnold apparently playing like Jesus H Christ over there.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Yeah.
but I'd say, and my final question before we end off this episode: do you think Caleb Williams could be the first ever Chicago Bears quarterback to surpass 4,000 passing yards? He has to average, I think, 300 yards these last two
Yeah.
games.
I don't think it'll be this season, but I think he for sure will be. I mean, you've seen the flashes, we've seen it. I really just think that it comes down to whether he can find his accuracy. His accuracy is obviously like he's got the arm, no doubt.
It's
We've
just his
seen it.
accuracy is a
We've
big
seen
issue.
it.
He's
Yes.
basically like bo- uh, polar opposite Tua.
Ex-
Like Tua can throw kind of accurately, but he can't
yeah.
really throw far.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think once he gets those down, I think he's for sure going to be the lock to get that amazing 4,000 yards that we've been waiting to see. But I mean, obviously, I don't think it'll be this year. We've relied so heavily on the run game. Our run game has been so strong this year. Caleb Williams has stepped up big when we needed him to, but he hasn't taken that last step to being a number one pick yet, in my opinion. But he sure does have the talent to do so.
Yeah, I'd say he's obviously performed. He definitely has performed better than his rookie season, and he's shown signs. Obviously, improve, like he's going to show signs of like projected improvement over the coming seasons. And I'd say that eventually you are right. If obviously he doesn't do it this season, he will do it some other season, such as next season, because this is definitely where quarterbacks really leap, really take their leap, such as Bryce Young. There was obviously Jalen Hurts there back when he took the Eagles to the Super Bowl for his first time before obviously unfortunately losing against the Chiefs that year, and then he eventually won. Obviously, he got, you know, he got the job done eventually. And I'd say Caleb Williams, he might go to the Super Bowl this season. He might lose, but he might have a Jalen Hurts, and he might come back this season after a little bit of a down year, a little bit of mental and physical progression. You could see a big run for Chicago, especially with a Super Bowl run.
Yeah.
I don't see them as a Cinderella story anymore, man. I'd see them as an actually competitive team.
You know what? That's all I can ask for.
That's all you really wanted to hear from me, huh?
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, really.
You just want to hear the Bengals fans say Chicago's
That's
finally doing good.
that's all I want to hear, man. Just something. We're looking up now.
Something
We're looking up.
remotely positive from me, huh? Because I'm
Yeah.
usually really
Yeah.
negative about the Bears.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but I wanted to obviously thank you for coming on to RSL episode 5. It has been fantastic having everybody on for another episode. Obviously, it was, it's been a while since I've obviously uploaded, but I've had my reasons. Obviously, Rylan has had his reasons as well for obviously a little bit of a few mishaps here and there, depending on, who you ask, specifically him. And I'm not dissing. I don't know what you've
No, no,
obviously
no, no,
been
I get
going
it.
through,
I
but
get
it's
it.
obviously been
Yeah.
holidays. It's been work for us. It's also been final season. We wound things up for first semester. Obviously, we did pretty good as far as we're concerned. But yeah, I'd say this was a really good episode to round out the year, and obviously to get a little bit of a good start for for the playoffs. I'd say for both obviously college football and just the NFL in general, as the NFL season winds down as well.
Yeah, man, thank you for having me. It was great to discuss this with you, and I can't wait to see what the playoffs look for us.
Absolutely. Obviously, I can't say the same for myself as I said, but I will be rooting for Chicago in the NFC.
Yep. Yep.
But I wanted to obviously thank you again for coming on, and it's been real, everybody. Peace out.